Hey, welcome to this Thirsty Thursday edition of Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. I'm John Tobacco. You are in for a doozy of a show today. Lots going on around the country. Lots going on right here in New York City. We're coming to you live as we do every single day from the Corona Bunker Studios in the living room of my house in Staten Island, New York. And New York City, where our studio is usually, before there was a pandemic, is under attack like you cannot believe. The Black Lives Matter and Antifa folks have hijacked the social justice protests, and now it's just become all-out mayhem. At the same time, here in New York, our wacko left-wing mayor, Bill de Blasio, has taken $1 billion, yes, $1 billion from the NYPD. And you got wackos like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying it's not enough. They didn't really take the $1 billion. No, in fact, they did. And not only did they defund the police to the tune of 16% of their 2019 budget, what they did immediately was abolish the street crime unit. Street crime, there's like 1,000 cops. They go undercover, they surveil, they watch, they investigate. People don't tend to commit crimes when there's a cop in a uniform standing right there. They do commit crimes when they don't know there's a cop there, and that's why the street crime guys are so important in taking guns off the street. What happened yesterday was absolutely crazy here in New York, and it's happening around the country. Cops are literally becoming the victims of attacks. And yesterday in New York, there was a peaceful protest by a bunch of clergy members, a bunch of politicians. It was a great march. They were marching for faith, to keep the faith, peaceful, right? All of a sudden, people got out of hand. People coming out of nowhere. This lady comes out of nowhere and smashes a cop over the head with a cane, splits his skull open, and then surveillance video pops up, and it was featured in today's New York Post. These protests that are supposed to be peaceful, lo and behold, just a few blocks away from Cadman Plaza, where the protest march was yesterday, over the Brooklyn Bridge, pretty peaceful until cops' heads get split open and caught on surveillance video right nearby. Here are the Antifites getting their supplies together. Take a good look at this. It's hard to see, but watch it. I'll tell you what you're looking at. A little issue trying to do something new. My audio was out there. I don't know if you could see it perfectly. You should be able to. But that was a car pulling up and fortifying the protesters with baseball bats. Yeah, that was the guy opened the trunk. He was pulling out baseball bats, and the other guys are coming over and collecting them. And then you want to know why cops are getting their heads split open? Because the protesters who are supposed to be peaceful, they're giving out baseball bats. And I think the NYPD commissioner got attacked yesterday. The chief of police broke a finger. It's getting totally out of hand. At some point, the silent majority's got to speak up. More and more people are starting to speak up for the cops. And there was a poll out recently that like 80% of African American people want cops in their neighborhood. So we're actually in a situation where the tail is wagging the dog. Something's got to change. Something's going to change for you right after this. We'll come back with some more news of the day right here on Biz TV. Welcome back. It is a Thirsty Thursday edition of Liquid Lunch on Biz TV, and this is a beautiful sound on a hot, sunny summer day. Listen, that's a beer opening. I don't know if you could hear it. This, my friends, is the finest ale you will ever drink. It's a Miller High Life, and they call it the champagne of beers. You got to try one. They're great. Good. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, my daughter Ava had her prom. We had a whole bunch of her friends over here and their parents and families. It was a wondrous day. I just happened to have a few beers left over, so I'm going to try to polish them off by the time the show's over. The Dow is down 120 today, a little bit of a recovery towards the end of the day yesterday, but never popped back over that 27,000 number. Right now coming in at a cool 26,750, and it seems range bound here between 6 and 7. I don't see anything crazy from a volatility standpoint. We are going to respond to your demands for me to give a more elaborate description of what's happening with the markets and business. We got a lot of time today to talk about that, but more importantly, crazy things are happening in the country, crazy things are happening in the city, and even our electoral process is getting screwed up due to this pandemic. And one guy who knows a heck of a lot about this is Dion Powell. He joins us right now. He's a Democratic candidate for the New York State Assembly in the 79th District in the Bronx, Executive Director of Government Affairs and Public Relations for a political campaign training company, Special Forces. All right, Dion, the last time you were on, you were talking about some really bad things that were happening down at the Board of Elections. I myself have had a lot of run-ins with the Board of Elections, and they that tends to be the proving ground where they decide how elections go down. And now in your race, a whole bunch of people were left on the ballot that thought they were knocked off. Other people were knocked off and they were left back on the ballot. What the heck is going on?
Thank you for having me so much, John. You said it earlier, a key phrase, silent majority. And I understand that concept very well of a lot of people who are scared to speak up, but I'm not, and you are not, which is great. So that's what happened to me in my race. I'm also a candidate in the general election for the Conservative Party. I also helped start the Bronx Libertarian Party. Now, having said that, in my race for state committee, there was a gentleman left on the ballot that was supposed to be off the ballot. But since he was left on the ballot, thousands of people voted for his person, but all their votes went in the garbage because he wasn't supposed to be there. So now it affected my race. So my argument is, I'm trying to find an election lawyer to help defend me, is that, well, this has to be scrutinized as voter disenfranchisement and suppression, which everybody that's Democrat in this town, the Bronx, claims to hate. But the Democrats are doing it to us. So hopefully the Department of Justice can come in and make something happen very soon before this election is certified in August. Because it's not fair these thousands of people have their votes in the garbage for someone that was supposed to be there that went to me or my other two opponents for the state committee. And this has happened to a lot of races throughout the Bronx.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw it, but here in New York, there's another new party that just got ballot access, the Save America movement, the SAM party,
New York.
Right? And I think they have maybe 40 members or something in all. And how many members in New York City, Nico? 50 members in New York City? Yeah.
Right.
There were like 800 votes cast in the SAM party election for state executive committee. How could there be such ineptitude? We spent millions and millions of dollars like 10 years ago on all this new electronic voting. How could they have so much ineptitude? What's going on over there?
Well, personally, me and the Bronx Advocate for Growth, the group I'm a part of as well, Community Leadership, we're actually observing poll watching at the Board of Elections on the Grand Concourse in the Bronx, absentee ballots physically being surveyed, right? And so far, the people in control of this process are making it up as they go along. So because of the social distancing, a lot of people cannot really observe what's going on here with these absentee ballots. Mind you, that's just one part of the process they're not telling us. They're not telling us how many votes were thrown in the garbage because so many people were not supposed to be on the ballot. They're not telling us also the amount of affidavits that had to be filled out at polling sites and many Bronx polling places that people couldn't vote for whatever reason. These numbers need to be made public on the website. So now you have poll workers who are getting instructions same day for observers like myself who are candidates or poll watching for other candidates that are insurgents like me to help protect each other's from all these votes magically disappearing in the back, and then new bags of absentee ballots being added that we didn't know existed that are not listed in numbers on the Vote NYC website. So that's a huge problem here in the Bronx.
So let me ask you this, Dion, because I know you know a lot about the Board of Elections here in New York City. One thing that's supposed to be sacred in our elections is that we get to vote anonymously, right? Like no one's supposed to, people can know if you showed up to vote, but they're not supposed to know who voted, who you voted for. It seems to me with this changeover to technology that the Board of Election can tell precisely who you voted for.
That is correct. And sadly, it's true. All these envelopes that are mailed in, everybody's name is on these envelopes, these absentee ballot mail in envelopes. So now you have poll workers reading out names of people that have voted through the entire public, and then when you open up the ballot, you see who they voted for because these votes are held up by the ballot and shown around. I wish I had brought my ballot that was mailed to me so I could show you the disparity, but that's what's happening. All this public information is being known. So now you have people observing with the media how they're voting. And mind you, my race, the 79th Assembly race, is left last. So now my polling, the Board of Elections, is actually going out of order for assembly districts. My race is left last because it has the most lawsuits. So now we have to check periodically the Board of Elections website to see when these ADs, as it were, are coming up to be observed by the public. But there's going to be a lot of fireworks at the end of this cycle with the 79th district.
Do you think there is corruption in the New York City Board of Elections?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely the case. John, don't get me started. I could be here forever going back with you.
Well, we got a little time, so let me hear what
Okay.
let me hear what you're thinking.
Oh, great. Well, unfortunately, the Democratic Party controls New York City politics. Donald Trump and Republicans have nothing to do with what goes on our Board of Elections, especially in the Bronx, the bluest county in America, yet always the poorest county. So hopefully people put two and two together. So the corruption comes into play and where the Democratic county can appoint the commissioners. The district leaders who are Democrats control the polling sites and the poll workers. So of course they can find absentee ballots. Of course they could lose affidavits. Of course they are trained in controlling the polling machines that you put your voting envelope ballots in. Now, mind you, these people can give misinformation and disinformation. Take me, for example. I'm in the know. So last year when I voted, I went around 8:50 at night. So the poll worker said, listen, sir, you can either vote straight down Democrat or you can vote straight down Republican. If you crisscross, you will lose your vote. What
Wow.
you and I just know is wrong, correct? Because I could vote for a Democratic governor and I could vote for a Republican lieutenant governor. So I could go back and forth, right? But they were telling people this information. So in their mind, everything is Democrat is good. So they vote unilaterally straight down Democrat. So me, I'm in the know. So I called the coordinator who I know personally, who's in our Jackson Democratic Club, and I'm not scared to share them out. I said, why are you telling your workers to tell people this? You're misinforming them, so they vote Democrat regardless. Oh no, Dion, they're confused, whatever. But it's them that's controlling it, and also the people they're hiring that don't understand how civics works. So I would say, well, how many propositions are on the back of the ballot? You should turn the ballot over for the questions so they can vote for it. They don't know anything. They just follow orders and that's it. So it's a lot of corruption back and forth and a lot of money involved as well.
So when they leave people on the ballot, just so I'm clear on this, they leave people on the ballot who are supposed to be kicked off the ballot, right? And that causes people to vote for folks who they can't actually get elected. So those votes are wasted. And one of the big things they're always screaming about, the Al Sharptons of the world, are the word disenfranchisement, but the lack of instruction, or maybe worse, and leaving people on the ballot just by, I'd like to think it's not corruption, but it probably is. People vote for, Amadou Diallo, let's say, but he can't ever win. So their vote is actually thrown in the garbage, right?
Right. Coincidentally, there is a candidate by the name of Amadou Diallo in the Bronx who ran for district leader that I know personally from the African Advisory Commission in the Bronx. And so now you have all these people who know all these community leaders. Mohammed Majunda, I'll shout him out too. He's a good community leader in the Bangladesh community. They got thousands and thousands of votes, and now they're vanished. And they have a lawsuit, and I plan to have a lawsuit too. Unfortunately, I've gone to a lot of election lawyers because it's a particular niche of election lawyers here in New York City. They all know each other. They all go to court, and then they go to lunch afterwards, right?
Yep.
So right now, I'm seeking help from other parties, the Republican Party, I can say I went to the Donald Trump campaign. I've gone to a lot of conservative news, Fox News, because the Democrats in this town will not help me expose this.
Right.
Department of Justice, especially, we need to overturn this election here in the Bronx and beyond, especially with the Sam New York Party, who I know as well as you. You have people that
Hey
want
Dion, we got to take a quick break here. Hang out with us. I got an open segment after this. Hang out with us. Let's spend a few more minutes on this. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back more with Dion Powell right after this. All right, welcome back. It is a Thirsty Thursday on Liquid Lunch. I'm thirsty. You open yourself up a cold one and stay tuned. It's the news with the booze. And we held them over because we got a lot to talk about. Dion Powell still with us. He's Democratic candidate for New York State Assembly, 79th District in the Bronx. Dion, thanks for hanging around with us. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, John.
I want to ask you something, and I'm not asking you about your vote, but this guy, Joe Biden, was on the Breakfast Club with this other guy, Charlemagne the God, who also pled guilty to a lesser charge, but he was accused of rape, this Charlemagne the God. And Joe Biden said these words that I thought were probably one of the most racist things I ever heard. He said, if you're not sure if you're voting for me or Donald Trump, then you ain't black. Doesn't that kind of say, like, all you black people have to vote for me, Joe Biden?
That is disgusting, John. Don't get me started on that situation. Of course, our votes are taken for granted. We're going to vote Democrat regardless. So everything else is evil. If you don't vote Democrat in this town, Donald Trump will eat you. Just like AOC parenting us, y'all. It's like everybody thinks that if we don't vote Democrat, we won't have power, control, or influence or anything. They make us think that our vote is the most precious and powerful thing in America. Meanwhile, we need to focus it locally to fix our own local cities and townships, right?
No doubt.
Because all these votes from black people united across the country doesn't really make as much dent because we have this electoral college process. But they keep trying to make us think that we have all this power and privilege when actually it is use our vote and just make us go away, have us register to vote, have us walk away. Then after that, everybody else controls the process on the top, whereas we're below as the foot soldiers, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've been saying this for a couple of months now that most of the things that affect the minority communities, bad schools, bad hospitals, bad health care, that's all. Most of those inner cities are run primarily by left-wing Democrats, right? They come around every 4 years telling everybody how you gotta, like you said, that vote's important. You gotta give it to us. We're here fighting for you. You got a guy like Joe Biden who's been fighting supposedly for 40 years, and nothing's really changed significantly until Donald Trump came in. And I tend to feel like when it comes to the Democratic Party, it's not that Black Lives Matter, it's black votes matter. That's all they really care about, is they want to make sure that you just hand them your vote, and what you get back is as little as possible. That's how I see it.
Well, I'll put it out there. I've been called sellout, Uncle Tom, all my life. So I'm not scared to speak truth to powers, especially in my own culture. And not only do black votes matter, black money matters as well. But more importantly, black poverty matters, because as long as they can keep us so poor, dependent, and dumb, and think that anything other than Democrat is evil, we'll always be in the same cycle, right? And they make so much money off our poverty, have so much power and control of us and our thought process because of our poverty with all the social programs. But these are buzzwords that make me sound Republican, but they're true. All the people in charge of all our social services here in New York City, quite frankly, are not black. Quite frankly, are white, if you want to call it that. Whereas they have all the black people like me as case managers. They get denies access to three things, John. They get denies access to property, denies access to capital, and denies access to leadership of our community. Because if we had these three things, we wouldn't need them. We wouldn't be so dependent on them for all things that we need in these lives. A couple of select black people are in key places, but if they don't have the people on the ground like us that have access to capital, leadership, and ownership, they can go nowhere. They still need this whole system to keep us poor and enable them to be in power forever and do whatever they want and tell us the new Green Deal is the best thing in the world, where we're not on top of the food chain making the leadership of the contracts and the money to control our own destiny here in our communities.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw this video today in the New York Post, on the New York Post website, but you know, they're supposedly peacefully protesting for social injustice, racial equality, all that good stuff, which everyone's pretty much in line with that. But caught on videotape right a few blocks away from the rally yesterday, here's a guy handing out baseball bats to the protesters. I don't think there was a Little League game going on the Brooklyn Bridge yesterday.
No, we had the same situation in the Bronx, and I was invited too because I'm on different Black organizations, E-Blast and Text Blast Union Search, New York City, National Action Network, and Black Lives Matter. And basically, they went up to Morris Park, which is predominantly Italian and Albanian section of the Bronx, because they were having a rally pro NYPD, you know, support the blue. So their counter protest was to go up there, you know, to have, you know, people down the line going at with each other. And of course, things sometimes gets violent because a lot of people don't understand that in different communities other than mine, people protect themselves. They have a right to protect themselves and organize. So for me, it's like, well, you're going up there and you're causing violence and it's making you look bad, but you're trying to control the narrative as it was to make them look bad. But outside looking in, if you're educated and seeing what's going on, these people have right to organize just like you have right to organize. If they came to the hood protesting and supporting the police, you would be extremely angry. But seeing as though Black Lives Matter is a hot topic and a very big moneymaker and attention grabber for certain people, you have to keep perpetuating this to keep people like me in the hood saying, you know, fight the power, when in actuality, you're destroying our community and you're giving more people in the Black Lives Matter who control them more power and authority to tell us what to think in terms of policy. All the things they're outlining for us with the Black Lives Matter movement is happening so reactionary, it's going to hurt us long term. Like when they tried to close Rikers, they told us that was the greatest idea in the world. You see what I'm saying? But then you have Black people like me writing the policy and control the contracting that went behind it, et cetera, et cetera.
You know, one of the things that I think they've done very cleverly, this group of Marxists and anarchists that they call hashtag capital Black Lives Matter, what I've been saying is this. If you say the sentence, hey, Black Lives Matter, I think everyone agrees with that sentence, right? All lives matter, but yeah, hell yeah, you better believe it, Black Lives Matter, as a sentence. But when you put a hashtag in front of it and put it in all caps and it becomes a movement, Black Lives Matter is hard to jump on the bandwagon when the people running it are self-avowed Marxists. They're saying they want to break down the nuclear family. They don't want a nuclear family, and that's what the country was founded on.
Right. So if you take Candace Owens is the perfect example and the perfect target for this, right? Because she points out the inconsistencies with the Black Lives Matter movement, which does focus on the family structure, economic development, you know, uplifting your community, and pointing out the disparities of all the people that support Black Lives Matter, but all the communities they come from don't really support the narrative holistically of how Black Lives Matter. Policing ourselves, disciplining each other, manners, economic development, supporting our Black-owned businesses. In Atlanta and beyond, a lot of Black-owned businesses were destroyed by Black people, which hurts their families as well. So for people like me who are in the know, who have education, who want to help our community, this doesn't make sense.
No.
Black Lives Matter here, and over here it does not.
No doubt about it. It's a tricky situation, my brother, but keep up the good fight. If you need us, you got to get the message out there on anything. Reach out to Nico, my team, anytime. The door's always open for you, too. That's Dion Powell, candidate for New York State Assembly in the 79th District in the Bronx. Now we're going to show how smart we are when we mix it up. Bill Cortez, military veteran, and Lisa Durden, BLM supporter and advocate. We'll mix it up for you right here on Liquid Lunch.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Daninos, the arugula pie, white arugula pie with fresh grated Parmesan. This is the margarita pie. It's beauty. This is the clam pie. Danino's is famous for the clam pie. Delicious. It's like after places.
10, 9, 8,
Okay, I'm reloaded. Say hello.
All right, welcome back. Just breezing through this first hour here on a Thirsty Thursday Liquid Lunch. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV, of course, and big hello to all our friends out there on social media watching as well. Always a great spirited audience we have on all platforms. And this is my favorite part of the show. We try to do it every day. Today it's so nice we're going to do it twice. But in the leadoff spot for today's Mix It Up, two great ones, great friends of the show. Lisa Durden joins us again. She's coming at you from the left. She's a political analyst, social commentator, and a social justice activist. She's a Black Lives Matter supporter and feminist. And also we have Bill Cortez with us. He's a veteran Republican consultant, Marine veteran, and both great people. And guys, there's a lot to talk about. But Lisa, I want to ask you first and then get Bill's take on what you say. We had on Dion Powell in segment 2. He's an African-American candidate for New York State Assembly here in the 79th District. And he was talking about how it seems to many of the Democrats in inner cities that black votes matter more than black lives matter. And they come around every 4 years looking for those votes. They get them, but the housing conditions don't improve, the hospitals don't improve, the schools don't improve. Why doesn't the movement, and I know you guys are trying to separate your movement from Antifa, but why doesn't the movement recognize that these people like Joe Biden, who've been in power for 40 years, aren't doing anything to improve the condition?
Well, it's not my movement, just to make sure you're being corrected.
Yep.
So Black Lives Matter started out as a hashtag, then it became an organization. So there are actually 3 women that started the organization who are out of California. So it's their organization. But since I'm Black, I happen to support what they do. So just to answer the question, like, your audience is going to love me. All politicians suck. All politicians have always sucked. I mean, maybe I'm only 56. Maybe before I was born, they didn't suck. So I feel like we have a revolving door of rats, on a wheel. So I don't see them any differently than the other. There's some nuances that are different. So it's almost like when you're a person who is the least of us, you're forced to vote for what they call the lesser of the evil. So I do not disagree with Biden having a whack record, but I do not disagree with also Donald Trump wasn't even qualified to be the president. So they all suck. So in the African-American community, it's more important to vote than to not vote, and try to now tell the person who stinks, take a bath and get it together. So at least he's moldable to try to say, here are the things we expect of you as a community. So that's kind of the marching orders, if you will.
All right, Billy, it's not a bad hashtag, but what do you think? Do all politicians suck?
Well, I think we've all been let down by leaders in both parties, and that's the problem. I think that's the frustration. That was a frustration that Trump tapped into 4 years ago. And I think people were expecting somebody who was not a politician, someone who came from the business world to offer something different to the table. And I think, there are some places where I think he's achieved that, and some places where I think we've been let down as well. But I think that, the fact is Joe Biden understands when you look at the numbers between 2012 and 2016, the number of African Americans who voted in 12, who didn't vote in 2016, that's the election right there. When you look in Pennsylvania, when you look at Wisconsin, when you look at Michigan. And so I don't think Joe Biden can take the African American vote for granted like Hillary did in 2016. And I don't think he is. He's actually performing well with African Americans, underperforming with Hispanics, but performing well where he needs to win. When you need big cities like Milwaukee, when you need Philadelphia to turn out, when you need places like that to turn out with large African American populations that turned out in massive numbers in 2008 and 2012 for Barack Obama. I think clearly, Biden understands that you can't repeat the troubles that Hillary had in 2016.
Yeah, so Lisa, I want to move on to the COVID discussion because it seems even on the COVID, and I think this comes back to, you know, what you were saying, they come around every 4 years for the votes, but the hospitals really, and access to healthcare usually stinks in the inner city. It seems like COVID is disproportionately affecting minorities. And now the government has decided that they're going to outsource the testing to speed it up. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention is not going to be doing it, but a private firm. Is this a good thing for the inner cities or a bad thing?
Well, let's just correct. All Black people are not in inner cities.
I know that. I'm saying, but it's.
So I'm a weirdo here. So I do not like how the CDC's been treating this illness because I've been seeing the CDC be challenged by the Senate to give us free testing, and the head of the CDC's humana. So I think that CDC is very political. I don't trust the CDC. I used to until now, and they've shown their true colors. But I'm kind of torn. Do I want to trust a private organization? So if it were not for the politics of it all, I would go, yeah, go private, and they have no horse in the race. I would rather now, at this case, since I can't trust the agency that was put together for us to be able to trust about the Center for Disease Control, and you didn't try to control the disease, I would rather trust the agency. Because the agency would, again, I don't know how much Trump is, pulling the strings, but the agency would have more reason to do the right thing to get another contract. But
good point. Hey, Bill, what do you think? Billy's a Marine veteran. He put his life on the line for our country. He's worked at all levels of government. This seems strange to me, Bill, that they don't even trust the CDC anymore.
Well, the truth is, I think we've seen time and time again, we've seen when natural disasters hit, how quick the government, or really how slow they are to respond to these things. And, what you see is the private sector stepping up, and where the government has failed us. You see Amazon stepping up, you see Rite Aid stepping up in terms of testing, in terms of getting testing out and processing testing. So the private sector has to step up. And I think they're starting to fill some gaps. I think when you looked at the PPE, the shortage of PPE early on back in March and April, that you saw people reconfiguring their manufacturing factories to then manufacture PPE, so people were able to protect themselves, and really our first responders were able to protect ourselves out in the streets and in hospitals. And so this is kind of an age-old sort of argument too about what the public sector can do, right, should do, but can do, and then where the private sector can step in and really fill those gaps. And so something like this, I think, listen, we're talking about, I think, recording numbers. I'm not concerned about outsourcing things like that. But again, at the end of the day, I think it's all hands on deck here in both the public and private sector. We need to be able to work together. And if we can find efficiencies in the private sector, we need to do that.
All right. I got to tell you guys that during the Mix It Up, when the two guests who are on different sides of the political spectrum agree, I ring my little bell. So I'm giving you guys 2 rings because this is a good day.
Bill, understand this is your only time where I'm going to be nice to you.
Okay. All right. I'll take it.
She's great. All right, Billy, I'm going to go to you.
It is. Thank you.
We got 2 minutes left. Billy, let me go to you on this one and hear Lisa's thoughts. Just announced today that Trump has removed Brad Parscale as his campaign manager. What does this mean? Was Parscale screwing up, or is the campaign getting a little nervous?
No, listen, the campaign's looking at all the same numbers that we're looking at, and it's a cause for concern if you're the president and his team. Bill Stepien is stepping as the campaign manager now. Bill was someone who I worked for in New Jersey. He's the best of the best, and I think now you have time to correct the ship. Right now, it's July. You still have time to right things. If anybody can do it, it's Bill Stepien, that's for sure. But I think people woke up and saw, especially after the Tulsa rally, that you needed to shake up in campaign leadership. And this wouldn't be the first presidential campaign to do it. Several campaigns have done it, Democrats and Republicans. Now's the time to do it. You can't wait until you head into the fall. We see how quick these months are going by. Once you get to Labor Day, that's it. It's too late. So I think now's the time to, if you're going to make the change, make it now. And if you're going to make the change with anybody, Bill Stefan's the guy to do it.
All right, Lisa, I'm going to give you the final word. We got 1 minute left. What do you think about this shakeup? Is Trump on the run here?
Well, yeah, the shakeup is what we call the rope-a-dope. You know, remember back in the day when we had boxers and you had Muhammad Ali would put you on the rope-a-dope and he'd have on the ropes punching you up? So that's what Joe Biden has. Joe Biden has Trump on the ropes and he's punching him up. And to Bill's point again, this guy has a track record of really killing the game for many Republicans, including Meghan McCain's father. He's done a lot of work on many campaigns and he's done very well. So they're trying to suck the last bit of energy out of the time we have left to take what this man can do and try to make the magic work. But they're nervous because the polls are showing that, Sleepy Joe is killing the game. He's like, it's like the tortoise in the air. He's slowly winning. So this is a fear. They're fearful, and I don't think it's going to work. He's not going to be the victor in November. He's just out. He was a one-term president. And for good reason.
Well, we'll see, and I'm sure you and I will talk about it some more.
Yeah.
Billy Cortez and Lisa Durden, thank you so much. Today was that was a 3-star and a 2-bell ringer. I haven't had one of them in a while, but
it's the COVID. I'm a little nicer during the COVID.
Thank you, guys. We got to leave it there. Lisa Durden and Bill Cortez. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with more Liquid Lunch for you right after this.
For more Liquid Lunch, head over to YouTube, do a search for Liquid Lunch TV, and hit that subscribe button.
As we kick it through hour one here, we have a Dow Jones that's down 150 points. It's just 26,700 as we speak, up just a bit from when we kicked off this hour. And Bitcoin is at 9,100 in a potentially scary situation here, because if it breaks down below 9,000, there could be a trapdoor. 8,000 is the last place that I entered with a new purchase. So I have about 1,000 points built in there, but 9,100 is precariously close to that 9,000 level. And if it breaks down, it could drop all the way to 8. If it goes through 8, it could go to 6,500. So be careful. Anything to the downside on Bitcoin to me is a buying opportunity, but do your own homework, keep your eye on the ball, make sure that it's suitable for you. I was talking to some friends last night. A lot of people these days who watch the show are asking me in private, hey man, should I get some Bitcoin? What do you think? I think you should have had some Bitcoin. And if you haven't done the homework and research and figured out if it's good for you, you should start doing it. And even if, I talk about all the time the need to build a diversified portfolio. Depending on your age, you should be investing for like 15 to 20 years out. So if you're investing for the long term and you've built a portfolio that's diversified, meaning not concentrated, I want Amazon, I want Facebook, I want Google. All three of those are in the same kind of sector. That's not good. You want a diversified portfolio where you have, I'll have a couple of growth stocks that may not look great now, but I think they have great promise in the future. You may want a couple of stocks that generate income, that pay a dividend, that, I get a little income every month from this one, I get a little growth over the long term from that one, and if you put all this stuff together, you have what's called a diversified portfolio. And that means you may want to have some gold in there, or some gold futures, or there are many ETFs now that invest in gold companies like Barrick Gold and others. You should have a little gold in there, and you should have some alternative assets in there. Alternative assets like cryptocurrency. If you're thinking about cryptocurrencies, don't think about anything except Bitcoin. That's it. If there's no Bitcoin, if there's going to be cryptocurrency in your portfolio, I would suggest to you the thing to have in there is Bitcoin. It's the most stable, it's the most widely accepted, and it is gaining more and more traction. I think there's tremendous upside. Some of the smartest guys in the world are turning their attention to Bitcoin now to the tune of billions and billions of dollars, and many think that it's going to be worth $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, and they very well could be right. And if you just add a little sliver in there, you go into it with the thought that, hey, I could be totally wrong on this thing and I could lose it all. You set your expectations very low. You take a look at it 5 years from now, who knows? You may be really happy that you chose to diversify your portfolio with a little cryptocurrency. I know I have. You should at least think about it. On the Antifa front, the one thing Lisa Durden did not point out when she was talking to Bill Cortez there was she says that she's a supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement. These people are Marxists. They have been on the record, on video, in interviews saying that they are trained Marxists, and Black Lives Matter as a phrase is one that resonates with everyone, but the Black Lives Matter movement is based on Karl Marx, one of the worst, dictators of all time, and the Marxist manifesto agenda is to break down the nuclear family, and that's what America was built on. We are going to kick off hour 2 right after this. We're going to take a quick break right here on Biz TV, and we will be back shortly to give you all the news you need to know, and then right after that, we'll mix it up with David Eisenbach and John Burnett right here on Liquid Lunch. Quick break, back at you after this. Welcome back, folks. I've been taking my makeup off every day with the coronavirus wipes. How's it working? I'm still corona free.
Didn't even wipe your fake tan off.
Well, that's because that's not a fake tan. That's a real tan.
This November. And Democrats don't want to see it, at least establishment ones. It seems like they're trying to sort of
Against weed, but for guns, right? There's all these different. Hey, all right, welcome back. You watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. Just kicking off hour 2 here on a Thirsty Thursday. I'm going to need at least one more cold one to get through this hour because it is hot as Hades here in the Corona Bunker studio. I am tireless today because I'm hot. But the market is not hot at all. It's cooling off after a few days where it's been all over the map. And down 150 as we speak now, down 180. And some of the news that you need to know about today is the 30-year mortgage rate reaches the lowest level ever. So mortgage rates today hit 2.98%. So that means if you want to go out and buy a house, and you should really think about doing that, the 30-year mortgage rate is less than 3%, which is quite low. And, if you want to borrow $100,000, it's only going to cost you $3,000 a year, or divide that by 12 months. It's $250 a month in interest, which isn't bad. You want to buy median house in America for about $400,000. You can probably get a mortgage around $1,500. Somewhere around $1,200, $1,500 a month. If you have good credit, first-time home buyers, I think, can finance up to 97% of a house. So you can put down, a little amount of money, and if you got some good credit right now, you can get a rate of less than 3% on borrowing a bunch of money to become a homeowner. And Dion Powell was talking about it in segment 1 and segment 2 in hour 1, that ownership is a big part of picking yourself up from the circumstance you're in and moving up to the next level. So with interest rates this low, you might want to think about hopping out there and getting yourself a mortgage and buying a house. Put that little white picket fence outside, and I've never seen rates this low, and quite frankly, they've never been this low. Johnson & Johnson, one of the biggest companies in America, reports a 35% drop in profits because coronavirus has zapped sales of beauty products. So I guess Corona is making more people are staying in. They're in their sweatpants all day. Me, I'm in a bathing suit below the table. But I don't use many beauty products. But I guess people aren't beautifying as much as they were. and that causes Johnson & Johnson to take a deep dive, and we'll keep up on other companies. Mixed earnings all around. It says here that the NASDAQ is taking it harder than the Dow, because there's a lot of what they're calling dumb money coming into the market. People are just thinking, wow, it was 18, 19,000 a couple months ago. It's flying. I got to get in on it. They're calling this dumb money. I will tell you this. I'm not calling anybody dumb. About 90%, 95% of all trading in all markets is done by machines these days. It's programmatic. It's algorithmic. It's a battle of the machines. If you're trying to trade in this environment, you're fighting some of the smartest supercomputers on Earth. So you're really not in a fair fight, okay? You got a baseball bat, like the thugs in Brooklyn at the protest, and these big-time trading firms have monster lasers being shot at you from robots. So you're really not in a fair fight. So be careful. Don't get lumped in with the dumb money in the markets, because you're going to get caught up in a tidal wave and washed away. And one of the important things you should be doing, as I said, invest for the future. Don't try to trade. You're trading against the machines. At the end of the day, you're going to be the loser. And I don't want you, my friends, my fans, my family, to be the biggest loser. No losers right after this, as we're joined by David Eisenbach and John Burnett to mix it up right here. Back, just getting our way through hour two here on a Thirsty Thursday edition of Liquid Lunch. I'm John Tobacco, and usually we mix it up once a day. Every week we mix it up for sure with these two guys. We're joined now by John Burnett, Managing Director of One Empire Group, columnist for Newsmax, and former Republican candidate for New York City Controller, and David Eisenbach, our own presidential historian, Columbia University professor, and Democrat candidate for New York City Public Advocate. Boys, thank you for joining us again. The big question on everyone's lips, and I'm going to go to David first because he's an academic, is it time to reopen schools?
I think it depends on where. Right now, Columbia University and the other schools in New York City universities are going to be completely online in September. We still don't know exactly what the city schools are going to be in. Bill de Blasio talked about a blended situation, but even that was amorphous, and Andrew Cuomo was very quick to say the decision hasn't been made yet. So it depends on where. If you're in a coronavirus hotspot, it's going to be hard to open up the schools.
Johnny, what do you think?
I don't think it's a matter of where. I think it's a matter of how. I think there needs to be adequate levels of PPE. There needs to be established protocols and the monitoring and enforcement of those protocols. As we've seen internationally and locally, kids for some reason do not contract the virus at alarming rates. So the real focus and concern, are the administrators, the teachers, and I think we can actually implement the right protocols to get students back to school, back learning, so that way they don't fall too far behind. And let's be honest, a lot of these children, they need to go to school, not only for their mental health, which is extremely important, but also nutritional value in terms of the meals that they actually get from the public school. So we need to just get it done and figure out how.
Yeah. It's not going to be easy, though. I mean, it's one thing to say, let's do it blended, spend some days in the school, some days out. But I can tell you as a teacher, and having spoken to teachers, doing, the blended situation, very, very difficult. Teachers are going to need a lot more support.
Some of those teachers and the teachers union don't like change. So a lot of it is just resistance to change. And I think if we actually implement more communication, get some ambassadors, not just educators, but people within academia, as well as business people, as well as other people from various industries and backgrounds to support a plan, I think we can get there.
I think the death rate for children under 12 is like the number's under 100 across the whole country. Do we really need to lock down the whole school system for something that's so finite?
It's a very hard call, John. I mean, we are talking about children, and they have died. And if you reopen the schools in the middle, this is why the test is where. I mean, if you're reopening in the middle of a hotspot, I think is insanity. If you're in a place where you're not seeing the great infection rate, then the risk can be taken, but not in a hotspot.
Not in a hotspot. So I would say, David, you think in anywhere there's a spike, we should not even be considering opening the schools.
What I would do is I'd leave it up to the health experts and the governors on the ground to make that decision.
Johnny B.
But taking an ideological approach to a medical problem, especially one involving children, that's insanity.
Yeah, JB, what about the California Teachers Union is laying down a set of laws now that they're not going to send the teachers back to work until they defund the police and they release people from prison. I mean, what is this becoming here? The unions are running policy now?
I think this is a great time to do what? To bust the unions. There's a lot of people out there ready, willing, and able to teach. This is an opportunity. Just like in business, when there's a disruption, that creates an opportunity for new entrants. And you know what? There's a lot of teachers, up-and-coming teachers, teachers with youth, teachers with the overwhelming passion to teach children, not just from the textbook, but real life. This is an opportunity to uproot and change the system, and we need to take advantage of it.
I agree. It's shameful. Anybody, whether it's a president threatening to cut school funding, if you don't open up the schools, or if it's a union trying to bring all these other issues into the discussion. If you bring an ideology to a medical question involving children, shame on you.
I disagree with that. The thing is, why should you get the full funding when you're not actually doing what you need to do? That speaks
because you don't want to put the lives of children and teachers at risk. That's why you don't open up the schools.
What we need to do, no. Look, the problem with the left is that they always look for a perfect solution. Here on earth, because we haven't made it to heaven yet, there is no perfect solution. There are risks with every decision. We need to take precaution. We need to issue mitigating measures and factors to reduce the risk, focus on the how, and most of all, get it done.
Look, I'm not looking for a perfect solution. I want a scientific solution. And I know the right doesn't believe in science anymore, but I do. And that's the only thing that's going to get us through this crisis, not some ideological commitment to making the stock market rise before Donald Trump's reelection.
Here it is. Columbia academic actually using the word science and then also implementing, financial investments. You know what? How about taking a weighted average? Not just completely surrendering to all scientists, but taking a weighted average, people from academia, people from business, people from science, and how about the parents weighing in as well? So that way we have a blended approach as far as how we move forward and not completely surrender to the scientists.
Regarding a medical question, I would look to a doctor before I would look to a businessman.
Look at the impact.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's not only about medical, Dave, because, I just want to weigh in here. Kids are losing their mind, and they're perfectly healthy, but they're having other tangential effects of being locked in their house, not being around other people and stuff. So what's the downside of that? Related to the medical's one thing. What about the psychological, mental, and the sociological issues that these kids are facing? They matter too.
They do matter, and that would be part of the medical discussion on whether to open up schools or not. But taking an ideological approach, like again, whether it's a union or whether it's a president, if you're looking for a political win here, shame on you.
Got it. All right.
It should be no politics here. It should be
That's what I'm saying, John.
What the right thing to do is, but we just have a different approach then.
All right. I like that. You guys, finally, you're not just playing, patty cake with each other, which is good. Pelosi and McConnell seem to be hurtling towards a showdown. The Democrats want like $3 trillion. Supposedly the Senate Republicans are going to unveil a $1 trillion package. They want to, extend this boost in the unemployment. Is 3 million really necessary right now, JB? 3 trillion?
David's people, they just want to buy votes. They're not even trying to buy votes. They're trying to buy people's souls. This is crazy. The thing is, in many states, employers are finding it difficult to get people to come back to work because they're making more money with the unemployment benefits at the federal and state level. Look, the thing is, we need to take care of the forgotten men and women across this country, but we also need to structure this fifth package, right? Fifth one is supposed to be the charm. Structure this package where it empowers the working class, but it actually goes to the people who need it. Maryland just came out with a $500 million fraud in terms of unemployment. People are actually at work, but also collecting a check. We need to do this in a responsible way and not waste taxpayer money.
Once again, as long as the taxpayer money is going to unnecessary wars, tax cuts for the rich, corporate welfare, bailout for the banks, you guys on the right are all no problem. Deficits don't matter. But as soon as it's going to actually putting money in the pockets, not just of the working poor, but of the middle class, which is what the $3 trillion plan will do, all of a sudden now deficits matter, right? You guys got to get your story straight on the deficit.
Deficits always matter, David.
Oh, that's not what Donald Trump said.
Hey, listen. Hey, can you?
The budget deficit to record levels last month. It was at 800.
I never use my gavel with you guys. I got to use my gavel now. I'm dropping the hammer. We'll be back on Biz TV right after this.
For more Liquid Lunch, head over to YouTube, do a search for Liquid Lunch TV, and hit that subscribe button.
Hey, welcome back. You watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. Just continuing to keep our eye on the markets as we breeze through hour two here. Dow down 150, still middling around. Nothing big going on. Some mixed earnings coming out. And as I've been telling you for a couple of months, stores are closed, people are home. The big online e-commerce companies like Wayfair and Overstock and Etsy, and these seem to be doing really well. But a lot of other companies are experiencing difficulties all around, which is causing earnings to be bad. And the market continues to stay up because I guess the markets believe that looking forward, things will improve. So they're betting on the improvement, which causes more buyers than sellers. We are very fortunate right now to have the radio superstar with us. Frank Morano just thought I was incapacitated, so he came to our rescue. Hey, Frankie, thanks for calling in.
Well, sure thing, John. I'm glad you're capacitated.
Yeah, I am capacitated again. And I really wish, I was really enjoying listening to you and Russ Salzberg in the mornings, filling in for Bernie and Sid on 77 WABC Radio in New York. Now you're on from 10 to 12 every day on WLIR in Hampton Bays in Long Island. And
that's right. But people, if they don't live in Hampton Bays, they can listen to the podcast. It's up there now. Just go to WABCRadio.com. You can also find it on my Twitter, @Frank Morano.
People can hear you all around the metropolitan area and further on 77 WABC Radio on Sunday nights from 7 to 9. And
that's right. This Sunday evening, I will be having an exclusive interview with our friend Roger Stone, the recently commuted Roger Stone. And I am going to try and find something that he hasn't told all these other interviewers because he's gone on every other radio and television show in the world. And so we'll see what's still fresh by Sunday. If not, we'll come up with something.
Frankie, what do you make of this Brad Parscale replacement? What do you make of that? Billy Cortez said he knows the replacement and he's one of the finest guys around. Is this good news or bad news?
I think clearly it's good news if you're a Trump supporter. I don't think you can argue that this campaign has been going well. This is one of the worst run campaigns ever. in terms of the 2020 campaign, and that's reflected in, I mean, part of that is outside of the fault of the campaign manager. Part of it is just the circumstances in this country. The economy is still really not where it needs to be. We still are facing a deadly pandemic, and we're still seeing literal race riots, violent race riots in the streets. So it's very difficult for any incumbent president to do well in those circumstances. That being said, I think you'd be hard-pressed to ask anybody this time around, what is Donald Trump's campaign message? You could stop 100 people on the street 4 years ago, and they would have told you Donald Trump's campaign message is, in some form, build a wall, make America great again. That's it. Everybody knew it. You could stop 100 people this time around. Not one single person can tell you the rationale for reelecting Donald Trump, other than maybe some people will tell you he's not Joe Biden. And that's not how elections are won. We all remember George Bush's message in 2000. Compassionate conservatism, right? We all remember Barack Obama's message in 2008. It was hope and change. We all remember 2016, make America great again. It's got to be a simple theme that people can understand. And this year, there does not seem to be a coherent theme so far from the Trump campaign. So I'm hoping that Bill Stepien can add a little bit of focus to this campaign.
Frank, we had Dion Powell on a little earlier, and he was
Great interview. Yeah, I saw it.
Talking about how he feels a lot of voters in New York were disenfranchised. People got left on the ballot who were supposed to be off, and then thousands of people voted for these people. Their vote basically amounts to nothing. I was fortunate enough last night to have the head of the New York City Board of Elections over my house. I didn't get a chance to ask him about the shenanigans going on over there, but how many members of the Sam Party are in New York City?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I think it's around 60 or so, including Nico, Jessica, and myself.
60 members of the party in New York City. And in our most recent election here in New York, how many votes were cast?
About 1,000.
So 60 registered voters, 1,000 votes cast. Sounds like the new computer gadgetry they got going isn't working so well.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to figure out for the Board of Elections. But speaking of elections and boards of elections, I don't know if you covered this earlier. If you did, I missed it. But it's now official that Kanye West is on the ballot in Oklahoma. This is the first state that Kanye has made the ballot. And I was a little surprised because our friend Steve Kramer spoke to New York Magazine. I guess Kanye has hired him to get on the ballot in a number of these states. And Steve Kramer seemed to tell New York Magazine that his candidacy was over. Well, at least as of now, Kanye has formed, he's on the ballot in Oklahoma, and he's filed with the FEC. So we'll see how many more states Kanye can get on the ballot in, because this could potentially be a very big problem for Joe Biden. So far, the first poll that has Kanye in it has Kanye polling at 2% nationally. But if in the states that don't allow ranked choice voting, which is most of them, if Kanye siphons off just 3, 4, maybe even 5% of the black vote from Joe Biden, there are some states that would probably go to Biden that you could see go in a surprise move for Trump. So in some respects, Kanye could end up being Trump's secret weapon.
Yeah, and I made this analogy last week that when we heard about Kanye, that reminds me strikingly similar to Jill Stein's effect on the last election, that women had another alternative.
No, well, you're right and you're wrong. I mean, you're right in that a lot of the people that were voting for Jill Stein probably were not going to vote for Donald Trump. But you're wrong in that 90 to 95% of the American public does not know who Jill Stein is. Kanye West has almost universal name recognition. And what comes with universal name recognition is, as you saw from Donald Trump 4 years ago, $1 billion worth of free publicity. You are going to have every TV show in the world itching to put Kanye West on the air for free. That's a kind of luxury. Jill Stein couldn't get on. If she got arrested, which I think she was actually, but if she got arrested, she couldn't be on TV. So Kanye is going to be a much bigger factor in the states that he's on the ballot, and maybe even in the states that he's not on the ballot that allow write-ins, than Jill Stein was.
Wow, that could be quite the move by the Trump campaign. I got some breaking news right here. Nico says that we can keep you for another segment if you're willing. I mean, can you?
I can hang.
All right, good. We're going to take a quick break. You can catch me and Frankie on Facebook during the commercial, and we'll be back on Biz TV right after this. Just when I thought it was safe to go into the last segment of the show, the WTF against Nico and Jess, which are no contest for me, he's back. Frankie joins us, special guest appearance, surprise appearance, and he's over at the studios of 77 WABC Radio. And it's so nice to have you back, Frank. The way they correct me, they don't even really know what they're talking about. They do these obscure corrections. It's not even that good.
You know, I didn't watch every minute of today's show, but I didn't catch any blatant factual errors today, so I think you're okay.
All right.
As far as my book goes.
Jess is shaking her head. I don't know. Let's.
Jess did. Jess found some, Frank.
Okay, well, so let's hear what she has.
Give Frank what you have. Let's hear. He says you got something.
So, during your interview with Dion Powell, you incorrectly referred to the SAM Party as the Save America Movement, when in fact it stands for the Serve America Movement. Now, I thought this was upsetting because it's so important to Frank, who's a prominent member of the party.
Yeah, I know. What's your issue, John? I'm on the state committee of the Serve America Movement.
I thought it was Save. I didn't realize it was Serve. My bad. All right. Okay, Jess. That's one for Jess. You're on, so she stepped up a game today.
Clearly.
Hey, Frankie, I don't know if you saw, but earlier in the show we showed a video that a bunch of supposed peaceful protesters were caught on videotape handing out baseball bats. Did you see that?
Yeah, I heard you talking about that. It is interesting.
Were they having a Little League game at the protest, or you think they were?
Of course not. And a big hello to our friend Meredith Barak, watching from Vermont. Vermont is considering something, at least Burlington, that I think the whole country should, and that's ranked choice voting. Because I think what happens, John, is people on the left, on the right, in the center, they don't feel like the ballot is their choices are adequately reflected in government. People vote one way, and then XYZ gets elected. People vote one way, and then their policy preferences are ignored. I think if we instituted a variety of political reforms, including ranked choice voting, which Burlington is considering going back to, then you wouldn't see people so ready to riot. If people thought their vote actually meant something and that they could change the system by voting instead of rioting, instead of assaulting police officers, instead of picking up a gun, then I think you would see people, a little bit less likely to pick up arms.
And to our friend Meredith in Vermont, Bernie Sanders would probably be the Democratic presidential candidate if there was ranked choice voting, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, certainly very possible. Certainly, you'd have a different strategy if you were running for president. But again, I'll point to the Kanye example. Let's say 60% of the country votes against Trump, right? Let's say Joe Biden gets 35% of the vote, and then Kanye West gets 25% of the vote, right? That would mean in many states, Trump would still get elected president, even though 60% of the country doesn't want him. What sense does that make?
It doesn't make much sense. Makes a lot of sense for me, for you to call in anytime you want, my friend, and for you watching out there. Sunday nights, WABC Radio 7 to 9, Frank Morano, and every day 10 to 12 in Hamptons, WLIR 107.1. Thank you, Frankie. Thank all of you for watching. Tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, more Liquid Lunch.
Welcome back, folks.
I've been taking my makeup off every day with the coronavirus wipes. I'm still corona free.
Didn't even wipe your fake tan off.
Well, that's because that's not a fake tan. That's a real tan.